This is Everything About Business Chinese, a production of China America Radio and the Confucius Institute for Business at SUNY. For a complete listing of upcoming events, visit confuciusbusiness.suny.edu. Now, here's this week's program.
Hello everyone, I'm your host Xiaomeng. Welcome to Everything About Business Chinese.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm a university business student and I've been studying Chinese for a couple of years. But believe it or not, I still feel nervous when I think of meeting a potential Chinese client for the first time.
Take it easy, Colin. We are going to learn the elementary Chinese in business communication and give you a glimpse into Chinese culture in this program.
Oh, great. This is just what I want.
Hope you will like it. Let's listen to a dialogue at a business situation first.
您好，
您好，我叫张天，这是我的名片。
张经理，幸会，我叫王燕，这是我的名片。
王总，很高兴认识您。
Let's listen to the English version.
Hello, my name is Zhang Tian. This is my business card.
Manager Zhang, nice to meet you. My name is Wang Yan. This is my business card.
General Manager Wang, nice to meet you.
How do you feel about it, Colin?
It's interesting, but I'm still confused about a few points. First, what are the names of these two persons? I heard two different versions, and I have no idea about how to say, here is my business card. Also, I don't quite understand what is 幸会.
Good questions. First, they greeted each other by saying
您好, which is a respectful way to say 你好. Then he starts introducing himself. 我叫张天, which means my name is Zhang Tian, and 这是我的.
这是我的名片 means this is my business card. 名片 is business card.
Oh, I see. 这是我的名片.
When the lady saw his business card, she knew he is a manager. In Chinese, we would like to use one's last name plus his or her title to show respect to him or her. That's why you heard two different versions. 张天 and 张经理. Tian is his first name and 经理 is his title.
I understand now. So is it the same case with Wang Yan and Wang Zong? Yan is her first name and Zong is her title.
You are right. 总 is the abbreviation of 总经理, which means general manager. We usually use 总 instead of 总经理 in daily talk.
My last question is, what does 幸会 mean?
幸会 means nice to meet you. The same meaning with 很高兴认识您.
I understand now. Shall we practice the dialogue again?
Sure. 您好。
您好，我叫张天，这是我的名片。
张经理，幸会，我叫王燕，这是我的名片。
王总，很高兴认识您。Thank you, Xiaomeng. I feel better now. If I meet my potential client, I will say, 我叫 Colin, 这是我的名片。Except 很高兴认识您, I also can use 幸会。
Right. Be sure to read the business card people present to you, and it would be better if you call them with their last name plus their titles, especially to the person you want to show respect to.
Thanks a lot. I will keep it in mind. Thank you for listening. This is the end of today's program. Today's question is, what does 幸会 mean? You can email your answer or your comments to cib@chinaamerica.radio.com, and we will post them on our Twitter account @ConfuciusBiz.
You can download today's transcript or listen to the program again for free at ChinaAmericaRadio.com. Just go to the partners page and click on the SUNY CIB banner.
You can also see a listing of the upcoming activities at SUNY Confucius Institute for Business. See you next week.
下周见.
Tonight's subject is how you get from the traditional Chinese culture, as we've just seen demonstrated with the hybrid of the traditional music, to jumping forward to today's music and using it as a means to market things to people. And so we have a couple of different sections to our presentation this evening, which is called Using Media to Reach Chinese American. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to get back, we're going to double back a couple of times. You have some pages in front of you. If you don't, grab one that's near you, because we have a couple of things we're going to do using these particular papers throughout the evening. And as Xiaomeng just mentioned, yes, I do have a book, but I don't sell it off the back of the bus like some people do. So I don't have any here tonight. But if you or any of your friends are interested in radio broadcasting or a career in radio broadcasting, there's a 20% discount for both the ebook and the regular book, and you can take that with you. So let's kind of get started. First of all, From background, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, and that's going to take about 30 seconds. I was born in Indiana, and I grew up. My father was actually a radio disc jockey. My aunt owned a radio station. I went to a high school in New Albany, Indiana, that has the very first high school radio station in the United States. So I was sort of indoctrinated early on into the radio world. And then I worked in Indianapolis, worked in Louisville, Kentucky, came to New York City, worked at a lot of the country music and other radio stations here in New York. Ended up working at Sirius Satellite Radio, where I helped develop all of their country music channels, which is now known as Sirius XM. I was an adjunct teacher at the Montreux, Switzerland Academy of Broadcasting. So I got to go to Europe and got sort of my international legs under me at that point. So what we're going to do now is fast forward to where we are today. The reason I give you a little bit of background about myself, we're going to get to that in just a minute. But let's start with some research. You know, you can't have any kind of a good project unless you have some research. And I think you're all familiar with the company known as Nielsen. Nielsen's the company that does the TV ratings. And then a few years ago, they purchased Arbitron, which was the radio ratings company. So Arbitron, Nielsen is now all known as Nielsen. And about 4 years ago, Nielsen came out with what they call the State of the Asian American Consumer. And this is a really nice piece, and it finally crystallized a lot of the facts and figures and statistics about the Asian community. So I've taken a couple of pages from this, and the one thing that, because I like to talk and I like to talk quickly, and we have only a little bit of time to do a lot, if you don't want to take notes and write all evening, which I hope you don't have to do, I am going to be more than happy to provide all of you with a complete copy of the PowerPoint this evening. I'll give you a link to where you can get your copy of this book or the ebook version of it, so you don't have to jot a lot of stuff down. But this is the book from which we take some of these statistics. So let's look at a few of the statistics right now. Chinese American population, now this is Chinese. Now, first of all, I have to make a cut here. There's Asian and there's Chinese, and we know that most all Chinese are Asian, but not all Asian are Chinese. So we had to sort out the difference between Asian and South Asian and East Asian. And for practical purposes, the Asian culture from East Asia is the dominant number in terms of population, in terms of figures. About 70% of the people from East Asia living in the United States identify to some degree as having some roots that go back to China. So that's kind of the group we're dealing with. So that's where that 3.8 million comes from. That's Chinese. The Asian population is more likely double that if you include South Asia and other areas. It is the fastest growing multicultural segment in the United States. No other group is growing any faster from anywhere, and the Hispanic group from Europe, from anywhere else. The couple of good statistics that make it a very attractive population to want to reach with media is that the average household income is about 28% higher than the general population, from 63,000 to 49 compared to the general population. Of adults 25 plus, this is a great statistic, 50% have a BA or better in Chinese households compared to only 28% in the non-Asian households. Also, population has grown at double-digit rates in 49 of the 50 states. In fact, if you took all of the Asians in the United States and put them in one state, it would be the fourth largest state in the United States. So these are just, when you start thinking about numbers, you think a few people here, a few people there, but it adds up. There really is a lot of numbers. And in the book that Nielsen put out, they projected that by this year, 2017, the Chinese American buying power would be $1 trillion. And because the economy has done reasonably well over the past couple of years, it probably has exceeded that or maybe hit that number a little bit sooner. Of the Chinese now living in the United States, about 3/4 are foreign-born. They either lived here for a very long time, but maybe were born in China, or they've lived here for many, many, many years, but they started their original their life, in China, maybe brought here as a baby. Now, this is a very interesting statistic, and I think we all know this. 40% of the Chinese in the United States reside in Los Angeles, New York, and San Francisco. Okay, no surprise. But here's what I think is kind of a surprise, and something we're going to get to a little bit later. That means 60% live somewhere else. So if you're marketing to the Chinese community, and you say, well, all we have to do is buy New York, San Francisco, and LA, you're going to miss over half the Chinese people who live here. So we kind of fixed that, and we're going to get into that in the middle section of what we're doing here tonight. So here's a couple of cultural elements that are important in marketing. One, the Pew Research Foundation found out that 54% of Asian Americans feel that marriage is a successful component, one of the most important things in life, whereas the general population, only about a third, thought it was an important thing. So the marrying, the coupling, the pairing of people, the finding the right people to relate with is very important. And secondly, it's multi-generational. 28% of Chinese Americans live in multi-generational households where you have the children, the parents, the grandchildren, in many cases the aunts, the uncles, that all are living under one roof. So that's not uncommon. But that's a good way to reach the household. You reach more than one generation of people. So let's look at some other things. First of all, media, which is what we're all about, is media. There are, at this point, now this is maybe a year or two old, and things are growing. I mean, it's longer than that, 2012, it's 5 years ago. But there were 121 newspapers or regular print publications that were targeting Chinese. There were 37 television stations or television channels that you could see on cable or over the air. Then there were only 32 radio stations. And most of those radio stations are low-power radio stations, AM radio stations, usually on the outskirts of the major markets like New York, San Francisco, Seattle, whatever. And I think we know who those are. And those of you who listen, and follow Chinese media, you know that there are some groups of radio stations, but only 32 of them at that point. There's really not that many more today. Digital has probably grown the largest since this survey came out. That includes websites, that includes all kinds of online things that are designed for the Chinese community. And when we get to the middle section of our presentation tonight, it's kind of what we did is put those last two things together. We combined the radio world with the digital world. Now, this is where we stop, and we take a little quick junket from China over to Greece. Anybody here ever studied Greek? Huh? Okay, good. Then you'll love this. So, except for this lady over here, maybe this is your first and perhaps also your very last Greek lesson. Now, the reason I'm going to give you this 2-3 minute Greek lesson is because the Greeks did something very cool. They came up with a process to make things happen. And let me teach you 3 words. And you're going to use these words in this order from the time you leave this presentation tonight for the rest of your life, I promise. The first thing is the Greek word credos. The word credos is a root word where we get the word credibility, credentials, credits. That's the Greek word is credos. It sort of says who you are. What are your credentials? Who put you here to show your credits? For example, when you go into a theater and they hand you the program, the first thing you see on the front page is the list of the cast members and what they've done, where they went to school, where they have studied. The first thing that an attorney does when he approaches the bench for a new trial is he says, I come before you, the bar, I'm a member of the Bar Association of this city, licensed in this state, whatever. That's presenting your credentials. So the word credos is something you have to do. That's why when I started my presentation tonight, I told you a little bit about who I am and what I did. That kind of gave me the right to stand here, along with having presented these credentials to the folks at SUNY CIB and then having gotten this invitation. So the second Greek word you need to learn is demos. And demos is the word that is the root word for demonstration, to be demonstrable, to demonstrate something. That's where you show people your product. That's where you show people what you've got. This is where you open your case and you bring out your samples, and this is where you show people what you have. So now that I've told you a little bit about myself, my credos, we're now kind of in the demos portion of the evening. And the final word that you need to learn is pathos. And pathos has actually become an English word that sort of means, drama and pathos. But it actually is where you ask for the order. This is when you require and request someone to take action. This is where you ask people to buy something from you. This is where you ask people to do something for you. Remember when I gave you the theater analogy? The credits at the beginning is what the actors did where they studied. The demos would be the play itself, is the production. And then the pathos is where they ask you for this, for the appreciation. They're asking for your response, or they're asking for your commentary. So if you get these things out of order, then you're going to mess up everything. So remember, when you do anything, whether it's write a letter, whether it's ask for a raise, first you have to show who you are, then you have to show your product, then you have to ask what it is you expect and what you want. Now, when you get the full PowerPoint presentation that I can email to you, or put it in the Dropbox and you can pick it up from there, I give some examples after this section of how you apply this to writing a business letter, how you apply this to writing a memo, how you apply this to writing a letter of support, where first example, you can't come running in and say to your boss, I want a raise. Well, you're not going to get it. You can walk in, however, you can say, look, I've been here 20 years. I work 57 hours a week. Even on my day off, I've been really good. I don't get drunk at the Christmas party. All of those really good things about yourself. And then you say, and look, I put together this presentation. I made this sale. I brought in this new client. I helped train these people. Now I would like to have the raise. You've got to put everything in that order. Another quick example. You're driving down the street. You're going too fast. You see the little red light in the back. Uh-oh. Cop pulls him over. Policeman walks up to you, shows his badge. That's his Kratos right there. And then he says, what are you doing? And the officer says, you were doing 50 miles an hour in a 40 mile per hour zone. That's the demos. And then the cop says, I'd like to ask you to pay this ticket, pay this fine. Everything is in that order. I mentioned the law a while ago, the lawyer. The lawyer tells the court who he is, where he practices. Then he lays out the evidence. Then he asks the jury to either convict or do whatever it is he's there to ask. Remember, credos, demos, pathos, in that order. Everything you do should be in that order. Okay, so now I'm going to remember those words. There's one little caveat that I added for our Chinese this evening, and that is there's one additional element in the credos. And the Chinese call it guanxi, which is to build a relationship. So sometimes in doing business in the Chinese community, in the Chinese world, it's not just about showing people your credentials. It's about spending the time with them to develop a relationship so that the relationship that you build with them becomes a part of your credos. He's credible because he has made good with this person and this group and this organization. So that's why that extra element is very important when doing business in the Chinese community. The other two, the demos and the pathos, are pretty much about the same. You want to show them what you've got and what you expect, then you want to ask them for the order. Ask them for what it is that you're trying to get. Now, we're going to stop and play a little game. I hope if you all have a pen or a pencil. If not, I have a few extras over here. But take out that big piece of paper that has the ABCD on it. This is only going to take a few seconds. I think you'll find it very enlightening. But the one that has ABC, it's like a full sheet of paper. And if anybody needs a pen, I've got a few extras. Sure. These are the official China America Radio pens. It may or may not work. But yes. Great. Thank you. Thanks, Don. Okay. Yes, sir. Oh, all righty. And one more for the gentleman behind you. That's it. And I don't have any more, but you can share. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. We're looking for a magic number. And a magic number comes from our everyday life. It comes from marketing, it comes from advertising. I want you to write down on column A, and I'm only going to give you about a minute to do this. I want you to write down the names, as best you can, in column A, of all of the manufacturers of mobile phones that you can think of. You know, we all have mobile phones. Just write the names of the companies that make them. Not the carriers, not Verizon, not Sprint, but, you know, the companies that actually make mobile phones. Just try to write that down. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds. Shouldn't take too long. Okay? And there's no right or wrong, but it will prove a point in just a minute, I hope. Okay, that's good for that. Now, under the B column, I want you to write down the names of as many television networks as you can think of. It could be cable, it could be over the air, but as many television networks as you can think of. I'll give you another 30, 40 seconds. I mean, these are all things that we hear about. These are part of our everyday life. Okay. And the C section, now the C is going to be, what I'm asking for in this part is the names of companies that manufacture computers. Companies that manufacture computers. And give you an extra couple of seconds for that. And then finally, the D part, write down the names of team sports. Sports that are played by teams, not boxing, not wrestling, but team sports. And you can go back and spend a second or two touching up on the answers you did previously. And I'll give you an extra few minutes on that, but let me take you back in time. You all remember, of course, Alexander Graham Bell, the Bell system, the telephone companies. Well, the telephone company was the Bell system. There was another part of the Bell group that did their research and development, which was called Bell Labs. And Bell Labs developed a lot of the electronics and a lot of the back office work that went into building the telephone network. So Bell Labs developed a lot of things, and they were curious about when they were rolling out their communications telephone companies and such, and how were people going to get in touch with each other? Were they going to give people like code names, or was there going to be some sort of a special ring or something to notify people? Instead, they decided to assign people numbers, and those became phone numbers. And Bell Labs tried this and tried this and tried this until they finally came up with what they thought would be the appropriate set of numbers for people that had telephones when they got their phones ringing. At the same time, when the automobile was invented, companies and states decided they were going to have to put licenses on these vehicles somehow and keep track of them. And how were they going to do that? Were they going to give each car its own name? Were they going to give it a symbol? Were they going to give it a number or something? So that all kind of is how it happened. So that's Bell Labs. That's the history, a little bit of some numbers. Now, let me ask you, how many of you had, in the first section, how many of you had 6 or more? Okay. How many had, in the B section, how many had 6 or more? Okay, look, that's like over half. Excellent, that was easy. And then the C part, how many 6 or more? Wow, okay. And then finally the D part? D part, okay. Okay, half and half. All right, let's go to the A part. All right, the A part, let me tell you. Nokia, Samsung, LG, NEC, Motorola, Ericsson, Panasonic, Samsung, Lenovo, Yubong, Hawaii, Sony, Apple. Those are all names. Don't write them down now. It's too late. But those are all the names of the company. And you've heard of those companies. So you know they exist. They're out there. These companies spend millions of dollars to make you remember them, and less than half of you could remember 6 of them or less. Well, all right. We could stop there, but the point is yet to be made. The B section, television networks. ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, AMC, ESPN, A&E, USA, Cooking Channel, Yes, TNT. So that, but we know these TV networks, right? We've all heard of these. I mean, we had a few more people were able to pick out some of those. All right, the C part, who makes computers? Well, Apple, Dell, IBM, HP, Asus, Acer, Lenovo, CyberPower, Avatar. I mean, a lot of other companies, particularly in even other countries, make computers. And we all have computers, so we know that that's a popular product. Now remember, these companies are spending billions of dollars globally to make you remember them. And would they feel proud of themselves if they were here tonight? All right, the D section, team sports. Well, there's football, there's basketball, there's cricket, there's handball, volleyball, rugby, hockey, American football, polo, softball, baseball. They're all there. So here's the point. The point is what Bell Labs found out. What Bell Labs found out, what the people who invented the license plates and a lot of other things since then, what they found out was, and if my power just died, there we go. Yes, the number is 7. The average of a room this size, if I did this, and I've got a lot more categories, is everybody can think of up to 7. Which means no matter how much you get marketed to, no matter how much money these companies spend, you can't remember more than 7 of them. So if you're marketing or advertising something to somebody, you don't want to put more than 7 things for somebody to remember in your ad. You don't want to put a piece of information out there that requires people to remember more than they can remember. Telephone numbers, 7 digits. That's what Bell Labs decided, 7. And they added a prefix at the beginning, which for many years was just a word, like Sunset or Whitehall or whatever it was. And now we have codes, which we all share. So it's 646, 212, 917, whatever. We think of that more as a phrase, not as a series of numbers. But the 7 numbers after that's our phone number. And that's what we remember. License plates, you won't find a state in America that has a license plate with more than 7 figures on it. Go out, look at the taxis, look at the private vehicles, look at the Ubers, look at anything. 7. So the magic number is 7. So when you're marketing, you have to remember 2 major things. One is the credos, demos, pathos, and then you can only make people remember up to their capacity to remember things. And 7 is that magic number. And when you see these radio ads and TV ads where people rattle on and on and on and on and on about the prices of this and that many products, and you can buy this and you can buy that, it's not going to happen. And these companies are spending millions of dollars to make you remember that. So I hope that those are the 2 big takeaway points that you can apply, and they're universal. It doesn't just mean Chinese, it doesn't just mean American. It's things about people in general.